Anyway, thank you for receiving. And there's a great segue, actually. I'm going to invite Stephanie Roy McCallum to come to the stage, and here's the segue. Yeah, you want to clap? Yes, do it. Perfect segue, actually. I just found it. So Stephanie has been working with us for the last year. I've been working with her for actually longer than that. You've been working with me. We're actually co-players in a lot of cool work in the world in the leadership space. So I'm going to let you have her tell you what she's really about, what she's up to. But here's the context of the shift: is courage and bold. What I just did was bold. I don't know if it took courage, but it was bold. It was out there. It was a little edgy, like right. And there's that place we all want to go, and sort of that edge. And what I love about what Stephanie does, and she's going to tell you in a minute, is sort of have people, organization, and systems sort of go to that edgy place in the conversations. So before she starts talking, I want to have them watch your quick video. This is your clicker.
Thank you.
So I'm going to have you play your video.
Oh, that's a technology moment.
Yes, push the big green one.
Okay, see what happens.
Might have to push it again.
One more time?
Yeah.
Can't see it. There we go.
What I love that you're doing, I want to name. So Stephanie's been, again, working with us and so responsible about cleanly getting your message into the world. So Stephanie made sure, by the way, that she had her own video crew here. She's mic'd, she's capturing this video for the sake of the work she wants to go to next. So I underline that as so responsible to keep getting it out there.
Yeah, well, it's about bringing your bigger game to the world in every choice you make. Thanks, Rick. Every time I watch that video, I do that big gulp moment, like, who is that woman? So I'm not sure if she's here on the stage today. So I want to start here. My work, there we go, thank you. My work is in the space of public discourse, the space between government and community, between private sector and citizen. It's a space fraught with conflict and tension and high emotion. I want you to picture, blockades and protests and marches. In that space of conflict, the space between us is where I work. And the thing about that space is that over the last number of years, it has been more and more full of fear and rage and anger and uncertainty and distrust. The gap between us is getting further and further apart. And so, like I said in my video, the thing I know for sure, there we go, I'm going to do that a whole bunch of times, I guess. The thing I know for sure, after 25 years of working in this space, is that brave, honest conversations are how we solve the problems in our world. They open that space between us and they allow us to cross divides, to see each other, to connect to each other, to create possibility. But it's not just a job, it's a way of living every day. It's a way of being every day. And, okay, wait, yes?
The big green one, by the way, the green one.
The big green one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The thing about it is that I think for years we have been waiting for our leaders to show us the way to cross that divide, to solve the conflict, to bring us together, to figure out a new path forward. And I think our elected officials, our senior government leaders, our community leaders are not stepping into that space. They are not helping us find each other and move forward together. And so I believe entirely that it starts with you. Your ability to have brave, honest conversations at your dinner table, in your organization, in your community, to show up like a leader every day, in every moment, to make that choice, to find other people to cross the divide, to reach out to people who think totally differently than you, to find the leader inside you. So I want to tell you a story. I thought I'd tell you a couple of stories and kind of link to How do you have brave, honest conversations in your life? Because the thing I know for sure, especially in working in this last year with Rick and Chuck, is that if you're going to bring your bigger game to life, you're going to have some brave, honest conversations with yourself, with your partner, with your organization, about how you want to show up in the world. So I want to tell you a story. I was hired a number of years ago by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. And they were bringing together a bunch of other federal departments, so housing and health and justice, to meet with a community in inner city Atlanta and to have a conversation with them to understand all the challenges this community was experiencing so that together these federal departments could figure out how to move forward and solve these problems. Now I want you to picture this community. It took me 3 taxi drivers to agree to drive me through this community because the first 2 said, I'm not taking you there, you don't want to go there. It's primarily an African American community. Gang violence, drugs, extreme poverty, unemployment, lack of access to education, to nutritious food, a community in crisis, living in the middle of a contaminated site. So finally, there's a moment where all these departments are bringing them together to be heard, to raise their voice, to actually understand what is happening in this community so that they can find some solutions together. So I have a room full of 250 people on a weekday morning. We're all standing there. There's actually a gospel choir getting ready to sing in the back corner, and people are clapping hands, and there's room only. People at all these kinds of tables sitting together, ready to be heard, to raise their voices. And as I'm preparing myself to facilitate this session, the EPA administrator turns to me with a shocked look on her face, and she says, oh my God, you need to go out there, as this school bus is rolling up outside the building, and tell those people they can't come in this meeting. So first I said, okay, it's just a school bus, who's on the school bus? She's like, that is the Tea Party come to join our meeting. And I was like, oh my God. So my first thought was, you are not paying me enough money to go out there and tell them that they can't come into this meeting. And my second thought was, well, okay, if I do go out there and tell them they can't come in, that's the front page of the Atlanta paper tomorrow. But somebody did need to go to talk to them because they were going to come in the room anyways. So I took a deep breath and I went out there and I got on the bus and I said, hey guys, because you know the demographic of the Tea Party? They are middle-aged, middle-class, Caucasian, male. And I have a room full of people living in poverty with enormous challenges who are African American, and a bus full of folks who are a totally different life experience wanting to come into the room to take over the meeting. So I had a long chat with them, told them a couple of things, and then I invited them in the meeting. I want to be honest, it would be so great if I could say it was like such a beautiful meeting and there was like hugging and singing Kumbaya and it was gorgeous, but none of that happened. But it was a meeting that was messy and chaotic and emotional and beautiful and brilliant moments of understanding and of deep conversations. 2 people who would never talk together had moments of connection, of understanding, of listening. It was one of the best meetings I have ever facilitated. Now I had to stand on a chair a couple of times and yell, and it was messy. So I want to share with you what it means to step into courage, because that was not a circumstance I was prepared for, nor one I had designed for. My company is called the Courageous Leadership Project. I tell people to be brave a lot. The thing I know about being brave, it is way easier to say than it is to do. So from that experience, I want to share with you a couple of things as you step into your bigger game and have some brave, honest conversations with yourself about how do you gather your courage. So first is you need to take a deep breath. Like you literally need to breathe in the cupcake and blow out the candle. And eat a couple cupcakes, like breathe it in and blow it out. And then you need to connect with your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you planning to have a brave, honest conversation with yourself or your partner or your organization? Really connect with your why. In Coach Speak, that's what is your purpose? What are your values? You know, what's motivating you to step into this conversation? For me, it's that I believe everyone has a right to a voice, absolutely, no matter what that voice is. So I connected to that why. I would suggest to you, if you don't know what your answer is, you should not step into the conversation. This is not a moment for you to gather your courage. You need to know why. Next, you should just act. Like when I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go out there and talk to those people on the bus. I was like, oh, what the freak is going to happen now? Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't think that all the stars are going to need to be aligned. Just go do it. Just go do it. The more you think about it, the harder it will get, the scarier it will get. You need to get curious. I have a lot of beliefs about what the Tea Party stands for, personally. I don't agree with them, but the point of a brave and honest conversation is not to agree with someone else. It is to understand what matters most to them. So stop judging, let go of your assumptions, what you're holding in your head, and just walk on that bus, the metaphorical bus, and ask some questions. Get curious. Hey guys, what brought you here today? Learn that they care about their community. They care about, you know, being able to run their businesses without interference from the government. Whatever it is they believe, connect with others as a human being. That allows you to be brave. It makes you be less afraid when you see someone as a human being than as a position. Rick calls this learning of mind. You bless other people's existence. I think that's beautiful, and I also think it's too grandiose for me. I think what you do when you step forward with courage is that you bless other people's right to have a voice and a view, even if it isn't the same as your own. Just to gather your courage in that moment and say, hey, we don't have to agree, but you have as much a right to a perspective and to speak, the folks on the bus, as the people in that room. We all have a right to a speak. And in this situation, we live in a democracy, and it's a public meeting. And so, of course, we all have a right to speak. And then lastly, if you're going to have a brave, honest conversation and you're going to gather your courage, it's not a free-for-all. It's not a you get to yell your opinion and your view and I'm supposed to agree with it and then we get further and further apart from each other. You set firm boundaries with a generous heart. And so when I went on that bus and I said, hey, tell me what brought you here. Once I listened to them, I said, come and be in this conversation, but I have two conditions for you. This is the only way this will work together for all of us. Number one, you have as much a right to a voice as the people in the room do. So if you can respect their right to a voice, I invite you to come in. Condition number two is, you know, they had all their placards and their signs, all of them on sticks. I said, come on in the room, but leave your sticks at the door. So leave your sticks on the bus. Bring your signs in, but you know, if everything does go to hell in a handbasket, then sticks are weapons. So, and whatever your firm boundaries with a generous heart are, in whatever conversation you are, there are always conditions that will allow you to be in that conversation to meet your needs and also the needs of the other person. I want to share, excuse me, one other story. So the project you saw in the video where I talked about 90 years of conflict between this indigenous community and this power company. I want to give you a moment in time in that 18-month project. So this community is in the far north of Canada. It's remote. Parts of the year it's fly in and fly out only. Like that's the only way you get in or out of this community. 2,500 people. They're all Indigenous. When I say Indigenous, for those of you sometimes in the US, you translate that to American Indian. That's what I mean First Peoples. This community was experiencing the enormous impacts of colonialism and everything that goes on with that. There was huge unemployment, lots of poverty, lots of drugs. There was gangs in the community of 2,500 people, but there were also people who deeply were committed to each other, who loved their families and their children, who were connected to the land and to traditions. They were a beautiful people. So about halfway through this community, we flew into this community to have a conversation. We were going to be there for a week. And as we landed, we learned that 3 children in the community had recently committed suicide. And so we're there in the community to have a conversation with this community about how do you be better neighbors? What's a better relationship look like with this organization? And we're realizing that the conversation we're actually going to have is about the loss of those children and about the circumstances that resulted in them making that choice. 2 days into that visit, I got a phone call. And I learned that my 14-year-old daughter had just tried to kill herself. And she was hospitalized, and she wasn't accepting any calls. They weren't letting her talk to anyone. And I wasn't getting out again for another 5 days. That's when the plane was coming back to Little Dirt Strip to take me home. And in that moment, I had a choice. I think brave, honest conversations, we always think they're about when we are perfectly calm and perfectly peaceful, then we can talk about tough stuff. We can talk about hard things together when we're in this really good place. So we can be there in service to somebody else who's challenged, but it doesn't really work that way. It works like you have your pain and somebody else has theirs. And how do you be with it? How do you step into the storm of that emotion and be with it for both of you? So for me, the lessons in that moment, in that visit to that community, they start with, I have a choice. You have a choice every day in your family, in your organization, in your community, with yourself, to have a brave, honest conversation or not. And I get that there are days when you say not. But actually, to choose to lead from that, to leverage it. It's like Rick talked yesterday about playing your bigger game, bringing your pain and making that a message of service. It's the same thing. Can you bring that to the conversation? And so to be clear, I'm not saying I was going to go sit with family members and community members who had lost children and say, let me tell you about my daughter who's still alive. What I meant was I was going to bring my guilt and shame and heartache and pain and be with it, not cover it up, just be with it and bring it in service to a conversation of somebody else who needed to heal. That means you need to embrace all your own shit, really, literally, all of it. Not compartmentalize it, not put it away. Be fully in the moment of feeling it, embrace it, and then take it and be with somebody else. And the act of doing that, the amazing thing about it, is that it starts to heal you as well as them. I think that's the power of having brave, honest conversations. It's why I think it's not just a job, it's a way of life. It's what connects us to each other. It's what creates possibility in the world. It's what allows us to solve the problems that we face together. I want to invite you, really, to have some brave, honest conversations in your life. To step into them so you can have your bigger game, so you can play your bigger game, so you can talk to a neighbor who's Republican if you're Democrat, so you can cross the line with a little curiosity and a little courage, so you can be with the mess of that shitty homophobic thing that person said and still see that they're another human being. I want to invite you to have some brave, honest conversations in your life. If you want to learn more, just come see me at my booth. Thank you. Thank you very much.